Good evening, my good tenor. This video was actually a lot tougher than I thought it would be because there are actually a lot of good melee weapons in Warframe and it's very hard to put them under the top 5 best melee weapons. So this is my 5 melee weapons that I would consider some of the best right now. As always, comment down below your favorite weapons and then I will have a squizzle at them in the comments below. Let's get into it. The first weapon is the Corofel. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh Flo, what about the Stropher? Yes, the Stropher is strong, but you know what's better? A scythe. A big scythe that is a gunblade. So I put it here on this list. Fight me. This weapon is relatively easy to obtain because it's Citrine's new weapon and literally everyone is farming it right now, doing the mirror defense mission on Tyana's Pass on Mars. Now I will say though, this weapon does require you to have a primer and have condition overload, but let's be real here, most melees in Warframe will need priming plus condition overload if you want to do big PB damage for higher level enemies. For non-steel path or base steel path it is fine, you do not need it. This weapon, like I mentioned earlier, is a scythe gunblade, the gunblade being the heavy attack, so you will only heavy attack with this weapon, do not use it as a scythe, it is painful. For this setup that we run, simply build for heavy attack, so we use both sacrificial mods, extra crit damage with Organ Shatter, Killing Blow for heavy attack damage, Berserker Fury for that extra attack speed, and then we go Corrosive, so Primed Fever Strike and Voltaic Strike. We also go Condition Overload because we are going to make use of a primer for this build here, as this weapon heavily benefits from Condition Overload and does huge amounts of damage with it. Also, the stance is absolute garbage, but it is what it is, so don't bother using this weapon as a side like I mentioned earlier. Just use the gunblade. It's also worth noting that the Corofel actually gains combo with the heavy attack, so you actually want to have more attack speed so that you finish the animation faster and consistently gain combo while heavy attacking. It's quite strong. The primer we're going to use is the Epitar with this priming build here. The Corofel is brilliant for Acolyte killing and demolishers as well from disruptions. You can literally one-shot demolishers with this weapon. Great weapon for normal steel path and star chart as well. I highly recommend getting it and it's a lot of fun. Here is the budget build for those who want to use this weapon but don't have access to steel path. Like the video. Thank you, my good tenor. Moving on to the next weapon, which will be the one and only Inodem. The Incarnate weapon. Yay! Who would have thought? Literally all of them are strong. Range. Yep. Dagger. That has range. Long stick. Obtained from Cavalera at rank 1 in the Chrysalid, you can get the Inodem. The evolutions we go for are Bladed Harmony, Skyborn Hunter, Incarnate Imago, and Armed Inspiration. The way this dagger works is as follows. You get to 3x combo and then you heavy attack activating the Incarnate form, which gives you increased attack speed and range for this weapon. You also unlock a aerial attack that shoots projectiles when you melee in the air, but it's not that great to be honest unless you prime and armor strip. For the build we run, Pointed Wind for the stance, Condition Overload. Pretty much all of my builds in this video will use Condition Overload because why wouldn't you use it? It's OP. Primed Reach because we want the long pole stick dagger, Gladiator Might, Organ Shatter, Drifting Contact for extra combo duration. This is really nice to have, otherwise body count works fine too if you do not have Drifting Contact. Blood Rush for more crit chance, Weeping Wounds for more slash procs, and then a Bane of Choice. Like I always mention for all of my guides for builds, if you don't have the prime mods or some of the mods, just use what you have available until you get the necessary mods. I would suggest running Arcane Strike on your Warframe if you want to get more attack speed, or Arcane Fury for more melee damage. And I would suggest using Naramon if you want to focus on your melee for missions, otherwise it's not the end of the world. The Inodem is pretty much the best dagger in the game with the most range. Does very good damage and will shred steel path with priming. It's a very good weapon to use. Even without priming, it does a lot of damage. Not much more to say about the pole. Moving on to the next weapon, which will be the one and only Nakana Prime. Channel your inner samurai fantasies with this weapon because it's been one of the go-to slash weapons for a while in Warframe. You just cannot go wrong with the Nakana Prime. It's just so satisfying. It's slightly pricey, but worth it in every way. I don't really need to explain this weapon. It's a katana that slashes everything. For the build we run Blind Justice for the stance, a Bane of Choice, Gladiator Might, Blood Rush, Weeping Wounds so you apply more slash procs, both sacrificial mods, Organ Shatter, and Berserker Fury. This weapon absolutely shreds. You can drop Berserker Fury and run Arcane Strike for Condition Overload if you want as well. I don't need to say more about this weapon, just get it, okay? And be the samurai you always wanted to be, and channel your inner samurai jack. Moving on to again the one and only Cronin Prime, the absolute GOAT. Can't go wrong with the good old pair of tonfas. Slightly cheaper than the Kana Prime and also absolutely amazing for slash procs as well. It just shreds everything in Warframe. This build is as follows. Sovereign Outcast for the stance, and you guessed it, you see the trend with slash weapons basically. Condition Overload, Berserker Fury, Blood Rush, Weeping Wounds, Amalgam Organ Shatter, Prime Smite of Grineer. This is so we do more slash proc damage, Gladiator Might, and Drifting Contact for that extra duration on combo. All slash weapons pretty much follow a similar build to an extent. Sovereign Outcast is very important. It's a must-have for this weapon. As a stance, the Cronin is so strong that you don't even need to prime enemies. It just shreds through them, especially when you are at max combo. You apply so many slash procs with this weapon. It's a go-to in my opinion, and if you're looking for your first good melee, it would be the Cronin Prime. Moving on to the next weapons. Yes, I said weapons. You already know about the weapons that I'm going to be talking about, but what I've done is put all three of them into one weapon, in quotation marks, because, well, technically these are three different best weapons, but I didn't want to fill up the top 5 with these three, and I didn't want to make a top 8. Ugh. The first weapon being the Zorus. Slightly overrated in my opinion, but I cannot deny that it is a good weapon. It's easy to obtain and has the biggest explosion radius out of the 3 glaives. Does very good damage and is also used a lot for the Grand and Void. Before I get into the build, for those of you who have never used glaives before, you do so as follows. You throw them by holding down your melee button, and then you detonate it in mid-air by pressing your heavy attack button. It's that simple. Just never use it as a normal weapon, please. Just never normal melee, only throw your glaive. The Zorus build is as follows. Gleaming Talon, this is a go-to stance for all glaives. Killing Blow for that extra heavy attack damage, because remember with glaives, we will only heavy attack. Amalgam Organ Shatter, Gladiator Might, Volatile Quick Return gives extra blast radius and explodes on bounce. Sacrificial Mods, Corrupt Charge, and we go for Prime's Fever Strike. So we make Corrosive because the Zorus has innate electricity on it. It's that simple. You just throw your glaive just above enemies and detonate it as it goes above them, and you will kill everything. Now moving on to the next glaive, the one weapon that I absolutely preach about in this game that is stupidly underrated, and that is the Serrata. An MR7 dojo weapon that does ridiculous amounts of damage and takes you to level cap, and barely anyone uses it. The significance of this weapon is the fact that it has Force Toxin procs, meaning it is a corpus killer. Why? Because it shreds corpus enemies at level cap, because Toxin only does damage to the tiny health bars of corpus and ignores shields. The build you run is pretty much the exact same as the Zorus, Killing Blow, Volatile Quick Return, and then Primed Fever Strike to add more Toxin damage. This weapon is just a must-have in Warframe. Everyone needs it, in my opinion, especially if you're going to be using it for Corpus and infested enemies. I don't need to say more about this weapon. It does millions of damage. Get it. It's worth it. Moving on to the next weapon, which is the other weapon everyone should have. And let's be honest, you know what it is. It's the Glaive Prime. This is the slash variant of the Serrata. So Serrata equals Toxin equals Corpus and infested. Glaive equals slash equals Grineer. Glaive does huge slash procs, and it's a go-to weapon, arguably the strongest melee weapon in the game. The build we run is the exact same, except we don't run any elements, we just run a Bane for Grineer. Now, if you have both of these weapons, you don't need any other melee. They do AoE damage, they kill groups of enemies, and one shot at level cap. You just cannot go wrong with these two weapons. And that's my top 5-ish melee weapons. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and enjoy slashing things to death. Let me know your thoughts and what weapons you enjoy in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.